if you spent time with this like asshole of a coach, you started the rest of your career, performance dipped a little bit.
It's almost like some kind of curse, right? Where it's like, I'm going to let you be world class at this and make lots of money, but you will hate every fucking second of it.
As you know, a young parent now, but lots of my friends are parents, is the former professional athlete friends that I have who are parents are the chillest people on the sideline. If you look at the data at who actually makes it across elite sports, whether professional, soccer, football, Olympics, etc., is for the most part, it shows that those two finally make it. There are exceptions, but for the most part, during their youth, they specialized later.
Yeah.
They explored more. They had more what we call like non-organized play.
Yeah.
Meaning you go play in the sandlot or
Sure.
you get your, friends together and play in the street. Versus those who, again, came a couple rungs short but didn't make the professionals, tended to specialize earlier, have more structured time, etc. And I think it comes back to that same thing that we're just talking about, is we need to develop the ingredients. And then also, if you develop those ingredients, intrinsic motivation, joy, exploration, so you can find your sport that you like, then it translates over. And I would argue that, and I kind of do in the book, but the same thing applies to other things.
Sure.
If we narrow too quickly, then we don't see the possibilities, right?
No, this is why I think David Epstein's book Range is a parenting book in disguise.
Absolutely.
It's funny though. Did you watch the Netflix documentary about tennis? What's it called? I forget what it's called. But it's really. But what I was so struck by, and I think it's a general, how much or many tennis players seem to hate tennis.
Yep.
And that struck me as unique amongst the sports, but it's also one of the sports that you specialize in earliest, and you can be world class at a very young age. Like it's Tom Brady at 40 isn't playing against 16-year-olds, but in tennis that happens, right? And so watching that, I was like, oh, how sad is it that these people found the thing they were meant to do, and then it's almost like some kind of curse, right? Where it's like, I'm going to let you be world class at this and make lots of money, but you will hate every fucking second of it. Even at the pinnacle, you will not, like, the idea of you having fun doing this is anathema to how it seems most people are playing tennis.
Yeah, I think tennis is one of those exceptions. It's like gymnastics and with women, right? Where it's like younger, have to specialize early because of, physiology, etc. We're starting to see that change a little bit, but I feel bad in that case for tennis. It's like, as you said, this is the thing that you have this enormous gift at.
Yeah.
But if it makes you miserable, like, what's the trade-off? Like, for me, like, if I hated writing, there would be no way that I would be a writer, because like it's like gotta have that expansive quality to it.
Or maybe you would, because it's still what you're getting paid to do, but you would be leaving so much on the table because you could have done it better. You would have done it more. You'd be looking for excuses. Like we see, I think Michael Phelps is a great example of this, where you have obviously once in a generational talent, but clearly leaves something towards the end on the table. He manages to come back, which I think is very impressive and a testament to sort of the inner work that he did. But what would Michael Phelps, who liked swimming, have looked like there in that core? Because there's obviously things he was trying to get out of because he hated it.
Yeah.
And how do we not do that to ourselves?
Yeah.
And to our kids?
Yeah. And I think that's the key, is it's like, when we look at these things, we're not saying, hey, don't try and achieve, like, forget about winning. Like, obviously outcomes matter, whether it's life and sport, like, outcomes matter. You and I have to sell some books, or else we're not going to be able to write anymore.
Sure.
Right. But at the same time, what we're saying is, like, we don't have to live in this path or go down this world where it's like outcome is all that matters, and then we hate the thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
There is still a possibility, and there's tons of examples of people who have reached the highest height and enjoyed the process of, like, exploring that sport or pursuit or endeavor. Yeah. And generally what you see is that those people are the ones who not only reach a pretty high peak, but sustain it They stay in the league for a long time. Maybe even after the league, they give back. They start coaching. They start helping people because they enjoy
They like activity. The sounds of the sneakers on the court and the smell of the whatever. They actually like the thing as opposed to the thing being some way to fill an enormous hole in their soul. And I actually think that's another really dangerous lesson we learn from these sort of generational talents who are miserable, is that we think it was the POW tactics that Tiger Woods' father did on him that made him great, when it wasn't. Like Michael Jordan deciding that Michael Jordan telling himself that he got cut from his high school basketball team, and it was because he was angry and driven and managed to, no, you grew a bunch between, right. Like, that's why you made it the next year. Like, there was nothing else really happened. It was that. So sometimes these people tell themselves very wicked stories, or they rationalize because they were betrayed or abused by a parental figure or a coach. And they go, that's why I was successful. And it was actually genetics, or it was actually a really great coach that nurtured. It was some positive force, and they've decided to credit the negative force. It's like Steve Jobs was a genius who was also an asshole. Yeah. He wasn't right. You know what I mean? The asshole part was subsidized by the genius part, not the other way around.
Yeah. I think in that's such an important point, and almost a damaging thing to society, because what happens is we highlight the asshole, the tortured part. Yeah. And people think like, oh, I have to do this. Yeah. And often what we don't do is we don't point to all these other people over here. It's like, hey, no, like this person's like a decent like dude. Like,
no, it's a very risky strategy for your kids, right? Because it's like, if you're like, okay, I'm gonna turn my kid into a monster, and for the low probability that they will become a professional athlete, but like the abuse that I'm doing is 100% going to have consequences, right? So it's like it might be worth it in one sense, but if it doesn't work out, they're definitely going to be an asshole, definitely have skewed priorities, definitely have internalized a bunch of things. That's really risky, right? Like you would much rather go, hey, I'm going to do this stuff. It's going to make my kid well-adjusted, happy, interested in math, all this stuff. And maybe they'll be successful, right? Because if they're not successful, they still have all these positive things.
So 2 things I've noticed as, a young parent now, but lots of my friends are parents, is the former professional athlete friends that I have who are parents are the chillest people on the sideline. And I asked one who was like an NCAA champion athlete and then ran professionally. And she goes, I've seen the journey. Yeah. Like, it's got to be up to them. Like, I'll support them. Sure. But like, whether they go through the ups and downs, I can't make it. Sure. Like, it's up to them. So like, I can make their journey miserable. Yeah. Or they can go on it and see if they want to go it on themselves. And I'm like, this is it. And then the other thing this reminds me of is there's actually, not on kids, but there's data on this, is a couple years ago, some researchers looked at coaches in the NBA, and they categorized them into like essentially how like abusive they were, sure. Right? Yeah. If they were like the old school Bobby Knight type. Yep. And then they tracked when a player played for them for a year, what happened to their performance for the rest of the career, and what they called their aggressiveness, which they looked at like things like technical fouls. Yeah. And the title of the study was called Scarred for the Rest of My Career. Because what they found is if you spent time with this like asshole of a coach, you started the rest of your career, performance dipped a little bit. And you
picked up bad habits. Bad priorities.
You kind of thought this is the way, this is how I have to do it, so I'm going to be more aggressive, so I have more technical fouls. I have these bad habits because like I was coached out of fear, and it impacts us. And if that happens to guys who are already in the freaking NBA, what do you think is happening to like little Johnny or Susie running around the the soccer pitch or what have you?
No, that's amazing.